find my way. And now I know that happy days are not far away. If I'm strong enough, I'll live long enough to see my kids doing something more constructive with their time than bids. I know because I've been there. Now I'm in there. Look back at what it took for me to get here. First came the drama with my mama. She got on some fly, so I split and said that I'ma be that seed that doesn't need much to succeed, strapped with mad greed and a heart that doesn't bleed. Boom, that's classic DMX. Hello, America. Hello, world. Hello, you. It is your new best friend, Cashmere, California, and this is the Pod is Good podcast, aka the notorious PIG, episode 37. Clap it up for us. Clap it up. Episode 37. And I have an incredible show for you today. I got my family in the building, and he's an incredible guy. Not only a motivational speaker, but an author, a psychologist. And he's gonna walk us through some things. I know there's been a lot of talk about therapy. Do you really need therapy? Is therapy just for certain people? All that. We're gonna demystify that today. We're going to really get into the weeds of this idea of therapy, who needs it, what it can do, all of that. So I hope you're ready. Hope you're connected. Hope you got a quiet space today. I feel like today is going to require that. A quiet space that you can really listen, zone in, take notes. And if you need to, jump in the chat and ask my guest a question. But without further ado, let's get the show going. Dr. Alvin James Williams. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, cuz? How's it going? Like
Family, man. Like my mama says, she's a cousin doctor. I love how she put the cousin before this. That's cousin right, Dr. Right. Alvin James. I love it.
There you go.
How you been, sir?
I'm doing good.
I say, hey, we be twins.
There you go.
Shout out to the Ohana.
That's right.
When was the last time you were in Hawaii?
Oh my God, that was probably about 3 months ago.
Yeah, oh, nice.
There, family. Well, my wife and I went. We just kind of went solo and just kind of hanging out. And so, I love it. I do a little bit of surfing, like I mentioned to you. So that's all good. We love Hawaii. That's one thing we got in common. So we know we're family.
We know that. We know that. Which island did you go to last?
We went to Oahu, and so we were just kind of hanging around there. Did some surfing. We were shopping around, looking at some condos. That's one of the places I am considering in the future. Nice. Retiring to. So we're just kind of scouting it around and just kind of seeing what it's like in terms of economically and socially and all of that. So, so it was fun time, good time.
School me on that real quick, because I've been hearing, I've been there a few times, and for whatever reason, I never really look into the real estate, but I always hear the real estate is high, the cost of living is super high. So tell me what you found looking into possibly retiring in Hawaii.
Well, one of the things that we've learned, because we've been there several times over the last couple of years, and then I've been there numerous times before that, but it's really just that part of it that we found to really be somewhat of a myth, and the reason why I say that is because people always say, well, the food is high, the cost of living is high. It's like, well, you know what, if you're going out there spending, then it is going to be high if you live in that life in terms of high rolling and stuff. But, we go there, we got a game plan. And we really can, look at, instead of having 3 meals out a day, we're going to say, okay, what meal do we want to have? Is it going to be breakfast, lunch, or dinner? And so we'll pick one meal, and then the other meals we'll have in-house, because we're going to have a place that has a refrigerator and a stove. And so, there's ways around that in terms of especially the food costs and what they're talking about in that aspect. The other aspect of it is we're talking about the cost of living in terms of the housing. And so, so the average house in LA is right now is about $800,000 and up. Okay.
Sure.
So
and that's a little house. That's a little bitty
that's
house.
a small house.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And so, in compared to Hawaii, it's you're looking at the same thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so the houses up there start at 600,000. So really, it's really
Mm,
about getting out there, doing your homework, and just
yeah.
really paying attention to what's going on. But don't believe the hype.
Yeah. Do your own research.
Do your own research. Get
Yeah.
out there and roll up your sleeves and go there. And it's interesting because last couple of people, co-workers that went there, they went there with a loot of cash and came back with half of their cash, because but they were expecting to spend more than what they spent, and I kind of gave them the blueprint. I said, look, well, this is what you got to do, and it was like, hey, they were very thankful because, don't believe the hype, so you
Yeah.
can go out there, you can have a good time, you can live within your means and really enjoy yourself. And so,
That's a
but
good
yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's a good point. Having a plan that changes everything. Like
Exactly.
don't just get out there and get thrown around. That's like going to Vegas. You
Yep.
better have a plan when you go to Vegas. I got this amount of money that I'm gonna do for the once that money's done, I'm done.
Exactly.
It be the
That's it.
people that's like, I did get paid Friday. I probably could just go take out another 1,000, see if I can get that. And then next thing you know,
And that's what happens.
yeah, yeah,
You got to, like you said, you got to have a plan, and then you
yeah,
just execute your plan, and you'll be fine, and everything will work out for you.
yeah, yeah. So I wrote in the title that you are a psychologist. I know that you are. Would you call yourself a therapist?
You know, that's a word that we toss around, and they go back and forth between therapist and counselor. And
Mm,
so I like the word therapist because it sounds a little bit more business oriented, and you know what you're getting when
gotcha.
you get a therapist. So when you hear that title, therapist, I think that you're getting somebody that is in the field and they're really focused on providing a good quality service for you. So I like the title therapist. I don't
Okay.
have a problem with that.
Okay. So we can interchange psychologist, therapist, and you are
Oh yeah,
okay, not
oh yeah,
offended. Okay.
definitely,
All
definitely.
right.
They intertwine. They intertwine.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So
no doubt.
so there's the question, right? There's a ton of ghosts around therapy and the idea of therapy and especially in certain communities, you know what I
Right.
mean, even certain gender roles, look
Exactly.
at like therapy is for weaker people,
Right.
people that
Exactly.
kind of crazy, they don't got it, they ain't got it all up there, they need someone to help them organize their thoughts and whatnot, and people feel like there's a certain um strength, like an inner strength to not have to need therapy. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's more
Right.
power in I don't need that. That's for someone, lesser than me in so many words.
Right.
Um, so to let's just ask a general question to like anybody watching.
Mhm.
Why do I need therapy?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one of the things that, we were talking off the air before we started, was that just really that uh, if everybody thinks about it in a micro perspective, is that we're getting therapy all the time from our friends, our family members. We're reaching out for advice.
Yeah.
So you're really getting therapy on a micro level on some aspect throughout your
Mm,
life,
that's a
and
good point.
that's really,
Yeah.
and so what you're doing is you're extending it a little bit further outside the realm of your friends and your family when you go into the professional realm in terms of therapy and seek my services or anybody else's services. And so there's a micro level of therapy that you're getting on a daily existence in terms of when you're around your friends, because you're asking questions, you're getting input from Uncle Bob and from Aunt Susie, and then from your friend. So
Yeah.
you're always getting therapy. And so really this whole concept of like, uh, I don't need help, but you're always asking for some type of guidance and assistance throughout your daily life. You know what I
That
mean?
part.
All
Yeah.
you're doing is taking it to another level. And so
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're getting out your internal world and you're going external to somebody else that, okay, now I need to take it a little bit to the next level in terms of uh, what type of issues that I have that are facing with me, and I want to go seek some professional help. And so it's really about if you can't really resolve the issues that you have within your, like I said, your micro level and your friends and family, then you're going to take it externally outside of that and really just work on some of the issues that's going to help you get to that next level in terms of our daily functioning and issues that we have. And so yeah, there's some things that,
Mm,
especially socially, there's a stigma around that.
definitely.
But I think that over the years we've gotten out of that, you know, and so I've seen a lot of minorities reaching out for help, and so I think that we're becoming more educated in that
Yeah.
arena in terms of just being able to know, okay, hey, this is something that I need to really work on. I need to
Yeah.
focus on, and so I'm gonna reach out and call Dr. Williams and see what I can do to kind of get this thing back on track and do what I need to do. And so, on that level, that's why people, I think, really need that extra help in terms of going outside their internal micro world
Yeah.
where they always seek help and then taking it to the next level to where somebody is professional that will help you just really kind of dive into it, because there might be some personal things that you don't want to discuss with
That's true. That's true.
within that structure, and so now
Yeah.
I need to take it outside of that.
Now you
And
can
so
actually
that's
do it.
another reason that you would do that in terms
Yeah.
of just being able to, you know, because it might be too private, you know.
True.
And so yeah, I'm gonna go, I don't want to expose some of these things that I have, especially if I'm a couple, you
Yeah.
know, and so I just want to keep that in house and then go to somebody where it's private and I know it's going to be kept there. And so we can intertwine with those two levels and then not really just have it outside of the arena of
Yeah.
the family, and so deal with it that way. So I think that those are some of the reasons that we're looking at in terms of just really being able to seek professional help with a therapist.
That is very, very good. Um, 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 game planning, like the way that you, that's almost like coming to the huddle and you, you were a little confused on exactly how we're going to do this. And the
Right.
QB was able to say, look, we've been doing this already. All we got to do, yada, like that was beautiful because that
Thank you.
makes a lot of
Thank you.
sense.
Oh
That
yeah,
makes a
yeah,
lot
it
of
does.
sense. Like when
It
you
does.
think about it as, when you put the term, especially like you said with the stigma, when you put the term therapy, when you put
Mhm.
the term counseling, when you know, the old term shrink, you
Right.
put the
Right.
titles on it, then it turns into something else. But you're right. In reality, we all go and ask for advice and what you think of this, and man, I'm struggling with this, or whoever that is, whether it's your auntie or your neighbor, you got somebody that you're willing, like you said, with different areas of your life to open
Hmm.
up. Maybe I'll talk about this thing with you. Maybe with you
Exactly.
know me a little deeper.
Exactly.
I'll talk about this thing with you. But taking
Right.
it to the next level, like maybe I can talk to you about all of it,
Yeah, that's
so you can
true.
see a
That's
full
true.
picture of me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
And so it's just really going a step further, and really being able to get to that help that you really need in terms of guiding you through some things that might be a little bit more personal in terms of that you don't want to share with your friends or other people in your life, you know. And so that really is helpful too, because now I can keep this private. I can go to a therapist and really just kind of lock in and take it to the next level and hopefully get those issues resolved.
okay, so now we've dealt with the why.
Hmm.
Right now, because you said it a few times, I want to deal with the how. So a few times you said take it to the next level. So let's say somebody does realize that. They realize that, you know what, eh, he's right. My current micro therapy is very compartmentalized. And so because I'm not willing to share all of these aspects with one person, I'm kind of getting scattered different ideas from different people. They're all, amateur, obviously. And he's right. I do want to take it to the next level. But then it's like, well, how do I find somebody that I trust? Maybe I've heard horror stories about, manipulation from a therapist, and this person ended up sleeping with the person, and they didn't treat those things as sensitive as they were. What would be your guidance if they don't know a Dr. Alvin that they can contact? How do they go about those first steps and saying, okay, I'm ready to do it? What do I do now?
Right. And so they have a couple of things. One is that they have a registry, which is a Psychology Today, which they can go on. And all of those therapists have been screened, uh, and they have all their information on there. And so it's very thorough. It's very informational in terms of just being able to get the information that you need about the
Hmm.
person. They have their bio on there, years of service, and then it also breaks it down to different areas of focus in terms of is this therapist working on individual
Mm.
versus couple versus group versus family. And so and then from there they go into different areas like self-esteem, um, emotional stress, anger management, domestic violence,
Wow.
grieving, all different areas that might be something that you might be struggling with in terms of different areas that you might be up against. And so it's very thorough in terms of informational uh, slides that provide you with that information on that particular therapist, and then they have locations too, and so that's the how in terms of being able to really just find and locate somebody that's going to be a good fit for you. And so that's important. Do you want a male therapist? Do you want a female therapist? Do you want somebody that works with latency age kids, which is between
Mm.
5 and 9 years old, or adolescents? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really breaks it down for you, and it really gets you to feel comfortable in terms of your search and where you're going and what you need to do.
Gotcha. Okay. So what we're looking at is psychologytoday.com. It shows marriage, family therapist, clinical social work, psychologist, marriage and family. This is awesome. I didn't know that this resource was even out there.
Yes, it's out there. It's available to you. I'm reconstructing mine, so I'm not on there currently, but I will be on there in another month. Uh, yeah, but it's very informative. It gives you all the information that you need, and it will really guide you and walk you through it in terms of what you want in terms of your needs.
Hmm. I like it. I like it. Okay. All right. That helps a lot. So that deals with the how. How do they go about it? So they found someone, they recognize they need this. They've now went here, they found someone. This is going to be an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The when. Oftentimes, when you're dealing with medical things, things that are, personal
Right,
and whatnot, they
right.
usually end up telling you, well, come when you're actually dealing with it. Well,
Mhm.
don't show up when the pain is gone. Show up when the pain is there so we can actually diagnose the pain. So when
Right.
does someone come? When they're at the height of their problem, when they're the lowest point? When would you suggest?
No, I think that's a very good question. I think when you're a couple, or let's just say individual, or let's go with the couple. Okay, and so with the couple is like, I think there's a couple there's a couple ways to look at it. One is that you want to do prevention, right? And then
Mhm.
obviously the other one is like you just stated, is like when there's a problem and you already know that you're in the heat of this issue and now you really want to resolve it. So there's one and two. So
Yeah,
preventative, and then the heat of the moment, which is
yeah,
you're already in it and we got to
yeah,
get this resolved so we can move forward. So I like the prevention area. And so the prevention area is really good because now you're exactly what it says, prevention. And what
yeah,
is prevention? That's really just being able to have the insight and awareness of that. Okay, we want to really just go into this open-minded, and what are some of the areas that couples deal with? Well, one of the hugest areas is financial. That's like number
always.
one in terms of
Always the biggest one.
that's right there. And so at, especially like in the very beginning, in terms of just how do you handle money? What are your views? So that's one of the areas. The other area is communication.
Mm,
On when someone just really looking at communication, how does a person communicate? How do they interact? How do they engage? And so that's one. That's two, financial. And then I think we talked about the other one, anger. So how do they
mm,
handle their anger? How does a person respond when they get upset? Are they able to talk about it? Or are they explosive?
mm.
And so those are some of the areas that you want to look at in
Yeah.
terms of just really being able to be aware of when you're going into a relationship, and then also as an individual, because when you're doing individual work, those are the same issues, right? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about communication, we're talking about financial, and then we're talking about anger management. And so those three things, they interchange
Yeah.
individually and in the relationship, you know. And
Yeah.
so really just being able to know, can I work on these things? Do I need to work on these things? Because there's two things I look at. You're either healthy or you're unhealthy.
Mm.
And so there's really no other way
That's it.
around it. You know what I
That's
mean?
it.
And so
That's true.
that's how you got to look at it. And so when you're ready to go into therapy and work on those things, those are some of the things that I'm going to be looking at in terms of some of the things that bring you into the office. But it's usually one of those three things, and then you're looking at self-esteem as well. So it's five things that I look at: self-esteem, relationships, communication that we just mentioned, anger management, and then the financial piece. And so
Finance.
those are very huge when it comes to couples and then also individuals as well.
And so let's go into them just a little bit, at least like the first three that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So first one you listed was finances, which I think everybody has been told by they uncle or their grandparent or somebody, like the money that's always gonna be an issue.
Right.
Always
It
gonna be
is.
an issue.
It
And so
is. And yeah, and you're right. And that's one of the things that I think couples need to look at from the very beginning when they first meet each other. Because you're in that I guess that romance or just, gaga
yeah,
land,
yeah,
your head's over heels, you done
there
met
you go.
somebody. Yeah, but at some point it's going to get real. And when it does get real, is being able to really just be transparent. And so the financial part is very huge in terms of just discussing, what do you think about money? And that's just a typical question, that you
Now,
can
now
ask somebody.
I know you've talked to women and to men about this. You talked to them, as they were single. You talked to them as they were married, and all that. And I'm pretty sure you've gathered that normally there's a different way that they view it, and even more so, it's different for the man to present that conversation a lot of times because
Right.
if the man is the first one to say the p word, yeah. When the word prenup comes out, that changes everything. So I kind of digging into the weeds a little bit, but what would be your, how does a man bring that conversation up in a way that doesn't start to make the woman feel like you're saying you don't trust that this is going to go all the way, or you don't trust them to not come and try to take all your money or whatever the case is.
Right. Yeah, and I think that those are the things that really just start with the communication, of just really being able to just kind of have that conversation. And then that really kind of lets you know exactly how another person is thinking,
Mhm.
how they're feeling, what's going on with them. You might not be able to resolve it all in the first conversation, but it might be something that has to be an ongoing conversation. You know what I mean? Because we might be able to we might get heated in that first time when we talk about something, and
Right,
so
right.
now we have to step back, come back to it, discuss it again, and so it might take several times to
Yeah.
really be able to just really hash that out and get a clear understanding of what's going on, especially when it comes to finances, because as we just stated, it's a huge thing
That's a big
especially
one.
with couples that they have to address, especially when it comes to the P word in terms of that. But it's
Yeah.
really just having those conversations again and again, and really just kind of addressing them, and just really just kind of feeling comfortable with the whole topic. And I think that's what we're talking about, because at some point when you feel comfortable about it, then I think you can hash it out. But it's
Yeah.
really getting to that comfortable stage where you both feel comfortable about talking about it. And now, okay, let's move forward with this and
Yeah.
see if we can really just kind of hash this out and get past this, because obviously it needs to be addressed and we need to get it taken care of. And so I would suggest really having those conversations. If you come up with the roadblock, then you call your timeout. You say, okay, we'll have to come back to this again. You come back to it, and then you just kind of really methodically kind of work through this and until you get to that other side. And so that becomes very important. And that also allows you to really work on that piece of communication at the same time.
I mean, that sounds great. I'll be honest. That sounds like a much more mature couple, a couple that, I could tell you've been married for some years, just in the way you even broke that down. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right, right, right,
You don't have some workouts in the gym with this already.
right.
And so it might
Right.
be a little more difficult for, the new guy, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't have that because even in listing those three things, you could say that communication and anger management are arguably like deal breakers. You know what I mean? Like on the surface, if we can't have a conversation, if I can't communicate my needs to you, my desires, my thoughts of the future, my want for kids, if I can't communicate it to you, then it is what it is. If you yelling at me all the time, it is what it is. But finances is tricky because it's also that area that people think, well, we'll grow to understand it, or we'll blend better later, or maybe once our lives are more intertwined and our finances are intertwined, then the conversations won't feel so stagnant. So it might feel like things are going to change,
Mhm.
but maybe they won't.
No, and that's important too, because at some point, and that's why in the very beginning, it's good to be able to try to hash those things out. Because once you're in it, like you said, then it's a little bit harder, because now um, it's gonna create some type of issue. Hopefully not, but it can, because like we said earlier, finances is probably the number one cause for breakup, especially
Right.
between couples. So we know it's an issue. We
Yeah.
know it has to be addressed. And so one of the things, like I was listening to Steve Harvey, is like, okay, so you should have 4 accounts, one for you,
Mm.
one for her, one together. And then I forgot what the other one was for, but
The emergency fund, maybe.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
you got to be able to, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, you got to have a plan.
Yeah.
We got to have a plan with this thing going forward. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe we're not on the same page, but guess what? We need to be close. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? We
Yeah.
might not be hitting 100%, but damn it, we need to be hitting 80. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because if we hitting 50, that's not good enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because now you go. That's when you go into those areas of concern, and you got to push the red button. But we got to try to have some type of game plan that you feel comfortable, I feel comfortable, and we can go from there. And so that's really the suggestion in terms of when you do come up with some issues that you're dealing with and you don't see eye to eye. It's like, okay, well, how close can we get to this? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
that becomes, I believe, the game changer going forward. Is like, okay, we're not hitting 100%, but damn it, we got to get past that 70%, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the passing score, right?
Yeah.
You're taking classes, like what they ask for 70%, right? It's like, yeah, that's a
At least
passing
it's 70.
score.
That's
You see what I'm
average.
saying?
If
So
we can
now,
hit 70, we average. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
we can
we got to
start from
get
there.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're hoping we can get above that, but we got to
Right.
get at least that,
Yeah.
and that way we're in the game. We're in the game plan, and we can go forward. So that's important as you're working together as a couple, especially when it comes to the financial piece.
All right. Well, new husbands or fiancés, y'all heard it here first. Make sure have those conversations, man. Have the conversation. Don't you heard? I know y'all heard the song. Don't trust a big button to smile, man. Don't just don't just let that smile make you go, all right, babe. We ain't gonna. You right. we don't need to deal with that. No, you need to deal with it,
Right. No,
and
you need to
she'll
go in.
respect you more in the long run if you deal with it the right way.
Yeah, you got to go. You got to go in, and that's important. The financial piece is huge, and so
Yeah,
and that's one of the pieces that you got to address from the very beginning, and just continue to work on it, and like I said, get past that 70%,
yeah.
and you'll be good.
Yeah. Because one thing I'll say, being, honest as a husband, one thing me and my wife went through is we actually did a pretty good job talking about these things, right? We were pretty much on the surface about, hey, this is what I do, this is what you do. Me as an entrepreneur, here's what my life is like throughout the year. You as an employee with this, here's what your life is like, and this is how we can make those two things work together. However, there's what you know and there's what you don't know, and then there's what you don't know that you don't know. And
Mhm.
what we didn't know that we didn't know was to talk about, well, what if things flip around? What if instead of you making the more of the money and her money being more of the supportive role, what if yours drops and
Mhm.
now she's the one making more money?
Mhm.
How are you guys okay with that dynamic, or is that a
Right,
problem? And
right.
and that was something that needed to be talked about after it came about. Do you run into that with your clients as well?
And that's a good thing that you're talking about right now, and I think it really has to do a little bit with the age too.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because I think the older men, who I think were raised in a little bit of a traditional role, in terms of the relationship within the foundation of the couple,
mm,
might be challenging a little bit more in terms of that aspect of it. A little bit younger, I think, is a little bit more easy. It's easier to transition. You know what I mean?
mm.
In that aspect of it. So I think it's really just being able to look at it and understanding that if you're a couple, are you okay with that? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? How do I feel about that? You know what I mean? I guess what we're saying, especially in a gender
yeah,
role, especially a male role, are you okay with uh, your wife making more money than you,
yeah.
and vice versa? And so really, because we know traditionally the male traditionally has brought home more money than the female, and so and when those roles swap, then how comfortable are you in
Right,
that role, and can you really fit into that role and feel comfortable with it? And so it's
right.
really just being it, and it's an emotional thing, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I've
yeah,
seen some guys, hey, they didn't have an issue with it, you know, and then some guys they did struggle with that, and
yeah.
so it's really like they felt like they weren't pulling their weight in terms of
Mm,
the relationship and what they needed to do and so forth. And so it's really kind of challenging. And so that's one of those issues that you really want to go outside, and if you have to, go to therapy, work on those issues. And then if you're really struggling with that, you know what I'm
right.
saying? And so
Yeah,
that's important to really be able to know that, okay, I have my limit. And so, but maybe that's something that I don't feel comfortable with. And so maybe, yeah, we need to talk about this at another level, instead of that micro level that we talked about earlier. And
yeah.
so now let's take it into a professional arena where we can kind of address this and kind of really hash this out and see, okay, how is this dynamic going to work? You're making more money than me, and I'm making less money than you. So let's just kind of figure this out and kind of move forward so we both feel comfortable.
Right. And it's good you said both, because it may not just be the guy. You could have a situation where the guy's like, I'm cool with this. And the girl's like, nah, you need to do some more. I
Exactly.
don't want to
Yeah.
be making more than my husband. So it really is a, where
It's
do
a
you
tra-
go?
it's a transcendent type of thing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
historically, we're talking about historically,
Right.
you're up against all of that. Your
Yeah.
traditions, historical, historically, all of that, it
Yeah.
has to be addressed in terms of what you're dealing with and gender roles and all of that. So you're looking at a lot of different dynamics when it comes to something like that. And so again, you might really want to take it outside of the home and go seek some professional help if you can't resolve it on that micro level that we talked about earlier. Because, like you
Yeah.
said, there's a lot of things that are going on with that, and so some people can transition into it and keep the train going. Some people it's going to stop and then it's just going to cause some issues within the family structure, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's when you really want to seek help.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you just said something that made me think of a quick sidebar because I really want to know. You said, something about gender roles, like traditional gender roles.
Mhm.
Do you provide therapy for same gender couples?
Oh yeah, definitely,
Okay.
definitely. I mean, it's really, you know, it's interesting because they have the same roles within the same gender, right?
Mm,
They struggle a little bit the same as what regular couples, or I guess the same gender, sex, right?
yeah, yeah.
Versus the male and female. So they struggle with a lot of the same issues.
Wow.
So it's really just being able to this doesn't escape anybody.
Right. It's
This,
finances,
yeah,
communication, anger,
yeah.
self-esteem, same
This
across the board.
doesn't escape anybody. And one of the
Yeah.
things that I talk to people about is, look, unless you're in an igloo somewhere in Alaska by yourself, you're gonna have to deal with the things that we're talking about right now on your podcast. Is that financial, anger management, uh, relationships, self-esteem. Those are these things you can't get around.
Right.
Daily. And so
Right.
yeah, they definitely come up in the same gender sex as well.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So back to the second thing would be communication, which it sounds like finances really touched on that a lot because a lot of that really is communication. But communication is also a very interesting topic because people can communicate in different ways and still be effective at it, but not work together.
Yeah, and I think that that's really some of the things that we as human beings need to really kind of understand. And so, and one of the things that I look at in terms of myself is like I remember I used to talk a lot, and it's
Mm,
like why am I always talking, And I think it was like part of that whole thing of like. Self-esteem, or really thinking that okay, I had to say something
yeah.
to either engage the conversation or feel like I was important or let other people know I was important, or whatever. But then I understand that what, silence is really is really good. You know what I mean? Because you're taking in information, right? When I'm in the room and people are talking, I can hear what's going on, right? I
Yeah.
can hear the conversations. I can hear what people are saying and how they're interacting with each other and stuff. So I learned to really just kind of zip it,
Mm,
and be able to just take it in. And so one of the pieces in terms of communication is really being able to have that listening in terms of what a person is actually saying, because
yeah.
like a lot of the times we're not really listening, to what somebody's saying. You're thinking about a response before you can even before the person even finishes their statement. You know
You
what
know
I
what you
mean?
made you made me just think about Chris Rock when he said, women don't want you to talk. They want you to listen.
Exactly,
Spot
and
on, man.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
And that's part of it because it's like, I tell everybody it's like, when you go, what's the difference? The difference is that 9 times out of 10, people are not really listening to what you're saying. And the reason is that because they are focusing on, like I said, a response, or they're focusing on something else. But it's like I give you an example. I go to the store, I say, hey, ma'am, I got this gift card, right? I got this gift card. I need to put $50 on this gift card, and her response is, well, we have the gift cards on exhibit over on the aisle over there. That's where you can get all of our gift cards. So she hasn't even answered the question, right? And it's interesting because when and you gotta test it out, right? You gotta
yeah,
test this out. I tell people, test it out. You
yeah.
throw something out there, right? And it's not even what a person responds to, right?
Right.
They'll respond to something different than what you put out there. And so that's really
Yeah,
the part about the communication where everybody they're missing each other. You know
yeah,
what I mean? It's like that's the part right there. It's like, and so uh,
You know what?
I needed her to say at the store was, okay, so you want to put $50 on the gift card?
Right,
Yes, that's
right,
what I want to put on the gift card.
right. You
You
wanted
know
her
what I mean?
to meet you at your actual question. You know what? A good example of that is people at drive-throughs. I remember I used to, go to drive-throughs, and I mean, not that I don't anymore, but I would go to a drive-through and order something. Let's say I said, "Let me get a number 3 combo, um, super size with a Coke." Then the next question would be, "Do you want just the sandwich or the combo?" It's like the
Right,
combo. And they're like,
right,
okay,
right, right.
would you like that supersized? Yes. And what do you want to drink? You're like, well, it's
Yeah.
like they have their things that they want to say.
Hmm.
You're not gonna get them past it.
Right,
They're gonna
right.
ask it in
Yeah.
that order,
Right, right.
and but you're right. That probably happens with people subconsciously in conversations and relationships where it's like you already have in your head outlined the things that you want to say. And so whether something new has been brought to the table, whether a counterpoint has been brought up that completely takes away that, you're going to say it anyway because this is what I came to say.
Exactly. And
You know?
that's why, part of the whole thing about communication is that you're tracking, right? I'm
Mm,
tracking what you're saying, I'm listening to what you're
exactly.
saying. And then, so you want to put $50 on the gift card. Yes, that's right, man. I want to put $50 on the gift card. And so it's really being able to stay on that, right?
Right.
I'm not even going to anything else. I'm not even going to phantom the whole thing about, yeah, we got we got gift cards if we're on aisle 8, blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm not even going to address that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to come back to, ma'am, I would like to put $50 on this gift card. So
Right.
I'm not even, yeah, I'm not deterring from
I'm
what.
not giving it any energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
not
not
going
going over
anywhere.
there with you. You go over
Yeah, I'm
there.
not going
I
left.
wait
I'm
till you
not
come
going
back.
right. I'm going to stay right. I'm locked into what I just said. And so
Yeah.
that becomes important in terms of the person that's communicating too, because you have a responsibility, right? Your
Right.
responsibility is to stay on track. And so
True.
that's what I work with couples or anybody that's working on communication is that now you have to stay on track, right? Don't let them take you for a ride, right? I'm
Mm,
not going left and I'm not going right because
yeah.
at some point you're gonna be way over to the right and you don't even know how you got there. You're gonna be like, damn, what are we talking about right now? You know what I mean? It's like I
Yeah.
started off talking about a gift card. Now I'm talking about aisle 6 over here where they got 200 gift cards and blah. You know what I mean? And so,
Preach. Preach.
so,
I'm telling you.
so that's part of the whole thing about
Yeah.
communication is really being able to track, stay focused, and it's really you, the person, and it's an individual thing because I tell both people it's like you got to stay on track. You're the person
Yeah.
that's responsible for the conversation to be able to be successful, and that becomes important. So I'm going to stay on track, and I get hassles all the time by my families because like, wait a minute, you just said blah 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 blah, and it's like they don't. They hate that, right? It's like because I'm gonna bring you back, right? I'm gonna bring.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna
They're like,
bring.
stop it,
Oh,
Alvin.
yeah,
Stop
yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah,
Leave me
that's it.
alone, Alvin.
Yep, that's it. Because and that keeps you out of trouble too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because now we're engaged and we're really trying to really kind of resolve some things that need to be resolved. And it's not easy. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's really not easy because you can get caught up, and that's what happens. A lot of couples or individuals, I won't even go with couples because we engage all the time. You
yeah.
know, and so we're in relationships all the time, right? So it's not just your partner, it's your kids, it's your family members. All of these are relationships. And so
True.
all of these require conversations and communication. And so it's really your responsibility to stay focused uh, and do your part in terms of communicating.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And so when couples are having issues with that, are there, I don't know a good word for it, but are there, the only word I can think of is games, but there's a better word. Are there things that you put them through, like homework for them to do, so that they can work on it? Are there, man? I wish I could think of this word, but it's escaping me.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, you definitely have to practice. I
Yeah.
think that's really the key right there is that you practice. You'll have a subject that you'll have that I'll give them. It's like, hey, you have this subject, you have this subject,
Mm.
and so they'll take it home, and you have to have a conversation about this subject.
Mm.
And so you'll have some things that you can do to really engage the other person. But it's really like you referred to as it is the homework, but still it's the everyday stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so there's really no different. All I'm doing is focusing them in on the task. So I'll give them a task, the homework to take home. I'll give them some subjects to talk about and engage with the other person. And so it's really about, I'm going to say the statement which I brought up earlier. It's like, hey, I want to put $50 on this gift card, and so I'm the speaker. The listener would be like, oh, so you want to put $50 on that gift card? Yeah.
Mm.
So that lets me know that you heard exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Uh, and so those are the two roles that a person is playing: speaker, listener, and then you reverse it, right? You'll
Yeah.
come up with a topic, and that person will listen, and they say, "Oh, so you said you're going to play golf on Sunday at 1 o'clock with your friends." Okay, I got you. I'm locked in. You know what I mean? So those are the things that you can do, especially outside of the office when you go home with some homework assignments to be able to practice on those communication skills and get them sharper. You know what I mean? Because like we're talking about the whole thing about the 70% with the financial piece. That's the
Right.
same thing with the
Same
with the
thing.
communication.
Yeah.
I got to get you hitting that high target of 70% or above because
Right.
because that's going to put you in that comfortable zone in terms of being able to engage with each other, talk to each other, and things like that. So that's important, and that takes practice also. But it is an individual thing that you have to be aware of because if I'm doing my part, then that's only going to make everything better. You know what I
Right.
mean? But I
Yeah.
got to do my part. I can't be focusing on what you're doing and what you're not doing. I need to do what I need to do in the relationship to make it better. So that becomes important.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It definitely is a two-way street. Can't be can't be. You need to learn how to talk better, and you need to learn. It's we need to figure this out together. That's huge. And so
And that becomes important.
yeah,
And I'm going to segue in too because the self esteem, right? Because I
there you go.
mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
So I want to really just kind of say how important this is altogether, especially when it comes to individual and couples, okay?
Mm.
Because that's one of the first things that I talk about, especially in an individual session and in a couple session, is how does a person feel about themselves, okay?
Mm.
So I just want to let your listeners know that that's a huge piece in
That's a big
terms
part.
of, it's huge, it's tremendous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because if
Yeah.
I come, if I'm with a person, right? Say for example, and they don't feel good about themselves,
Right. And
we
they're
got
gonna
a
dump
problem.
all that on you.
We got a problem.
They're gonna dump all of it on you. You're not gonna know, especially if they don't tell you, because most people won't. And next thing you
Well, it's
know,
gonna come. It's gonna come out
it'll
eventually.
come out eventually. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
gonna come
but
out.
between the then and now, it'll feel like this huge weight that's on you that you have no idea how to get out of, how it got there, how it got so bad. You're gonna be picking yourself apart, and then, like
Yeah,
you said, these are pre-existing issues that
yeah.
preceded you.
Yeah, it's huge,
Yeah,
and so that's one of the things that like I said, I was going back to, like I said earlier, is that that's one of the number one things that I look at when I'm working with a couple or individuals. How do they feel about themselves?
yeah,
Or have they gone through to this point in their life? Let's say they come in and they're 25 years old. I want to. And they always talk about, well, what do you do? Well, you get a little bit of history, right? You get some history about how a person has lived their life, what they've done up until that point. Were they able to really be by themselves, And so that's important. But
yeah,
again, how do I gauge this self-esteem, and it'll come out at some point in terms of how they really feel about themselves. But does it flood over into the other person? Yes, it does. And
mm,
so I'm gonna go back to the words that I used earlier: healthy versus unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
So a healthy person that has a good, healthy self-esteem and they feel good about themselves, they feel confident, they're not going to be projecting things out on into the relationship, onto the other person and causing havoc
Right.
within the relationship. So that's important. So a good self-esteem is really positive in terms of helping the relationship go a long ways. And
Hmm.
so that's important. And that's one of the things that I look at within a relationship, also in an individual as well. And so the
Hmm.
healthier you are in terms of self-esteem, then
Yeah.
then we're looking at that again, that scale, that
Right.
70%.
Right.
And
You
that's one of the
you
books
ahead of
that
the
I'm
game.
gonna be. That's one of the books that's gonna come out probably next year. Is that seven that measure up? Okay,
Ah,
measure up. That's what I'm. That's what I titled. I came up with that title about 2 weeks ago.
I like it.
Um,
I like it.
but yeah, it's really being able to know where do you measure up within the individual and then within the relationship as a couple. And so
Yeah.
that becomes important because that affects the longevity
Right.
and the strength of the relationship that we have going forward. But the
Yeah.
self-esteem is very important in terms of a relationship. And that's really something that has to be looked at from the very beginning.
And so when you say measure up, what is that being measured to? Is that grading on a curve of the relationship? Is there a standard that you're looking for people to meet? Like what is the measurement based upon?
Well, I mean, and it's really based on, and I have to go back into the history, right? Because you're looking at a couple of factors. One is how have they really? Uh, there's a little bit more psychology into that, right? Because
Okay.
let's look at some damaging things that could have happened to somebody along their childhood.
Yeah.
Like molestation,
Mm.
substance abuse within the home, things like that. So those things can affect the self-esteem of a person being brought up in a home. And so that's why you're really getting that history in terms of how they were brought up, what were they exposed to, things like that. So there's a lot of different factors
Mm.
that play into that in
Yeah.
terms of uh, how they might feel about themselves as an adult.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're looking at. And I'll give you an example. Like, okay, so when I was growing up in my neighborhood, I used to, I used to hear, like several houses down, some yelling going on, some things going on within that household. And it was like, wow, I'm 12 years old. I didn't know, you just, you know something's happening,
Right.
but you don't know to what extent it is,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And then as you get a little bit older, right, and you start figuring out, okay, so the kids that came out of this household were the kids that were bullies,
Mm.
that went to jail, that were doing some things, you know what I mean? Because there was substance abuse going on in the home, there was
Yeah.
domestic violence going on in the home, there was a lot of chaos, right, that was going on in that home. And so, uh, well, naturally, it would have affected everybody, right? And
Yeah.
so that's what we're talking about. So that's why it's important when you go to therapy to address exactly what you're talking about. So I'm getting a history. So I'm
Yeah.
getting a good picture of how this person uh, developed
Mm.
emotionally throughout their time, right up until that point. And so that's going to tell me how
Yeah.
they were affected within infancy all the way up into adulthood.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm getting that measuring, that all that information that's going to give me that measuring stick to really
Yeah.
kind of figure out what's going on and what's happening with them and what type of damage has caused them in their lifestyle in terms of where they are right now. And so minimum chaos, right, in the home,
Yeah.
positive results, especially when it
Mm.
comes to the kids in terms of the outcome of what's going on. And
Yeah.
so that's really what you're talking about. It's just like they say, I always hear this thing about, kids in the projects, there was this kid in the project that went to Harvard. Well,
Mm.
hell, shit, out of 2,000 kids, somebody gonna make it out of there. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But
Yeah. Yeah.
what about the other 1,999? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? That
Yeah.
really were exposed to all that violence and that substance abuse and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And so that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean? And so we're talking about really being able to take a history psychological history about what uh, their experiences in life, and so that'll give me that information in
And so
terms
then
of.
that helps you with the other factor that we talked about, which was anger management. Because
Mhm.
if you see that the history shows a certain trait in the past,
Mhm.
then that can kind of connect to this anger management. That now you understand, and it can help the person on the other side of that relationship understand that it's not them. These are demons that just need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Whereas if maybe the person had what'd you say, low what, low
No, you talking about low self-esteem
no
or
low low chaos. So I'm just gonna use
oh
that.
chaos? Yeah, there's
Yeah,
chaos.
if
Uh,
they had low chaos in their home, we have good result. But now if that person
exactly.
has all of a sudden anger issues with you, it's like, okay, well, now there may be something to deal with in the now that
Mhm.
we can handle
Yeah,
handle.
I mean, yeah, and all these things really kind of play out because, and you'll see it, you can see a lot of this stuff in your daily life when you were exposed to outside the world, right? And so, example would be I would be with a mother, out on the streets, and she's doing something with her kids, and and you might think it's not appropriate or something like that, and then you might see the kid, right? Her interactions with her friends, right? It's kind of displayed from a parent, right?
Yeah,
And so she's going to take that behavior and show it again outside with
right.
her friends because that's the behavior that she was brought up with, and so and that's really what we're talking about. It's like those behaviors and that chaos that's going on in the home is going to be acted out externally
Yeah,
at school, and that's why you have kids that have behavior problems in school, have issues that are going on in school, and then there can be a number of factors, but malnutrition, lack of sleep,
that's a big
uh,
one. A lot of people don't talk about that one, but that's a big one.
yeah, lack of
Yeah,
consistency in the home. If a kid is coming home and he's dealing with the mom who's dealing with some issues with the dad who's domestic violence and all that violence in the home. I'm a 7-year old kid and I'm exposed to all of this stuff that's going
yeah,
on in the home. And so those are the things that we're talking about that are going to affect you, later on in life. And so those are the things that come into the room that you have to really be able to uncover and
yeah,
kind of figure out, pinpoint, okay, so we need to address this. And this is why you're having these anger issues. This is why you committed domestic violence. This is why you're having substance abuse issues and stuff like this. Because these things are going to play out later in life. Because if they don't have a good self-esteem, then you're going to be drawn into other things that are going on around you because you don't have the internal drive to really push things away and
yeah,
push forward and really just kind of be strong in life. So those are the factors. Those are the things that come up that really kind of lets me know what the self-esteem is like, and then I can really address that. But if it's coming out in a relationship, then that's a huge problem because now like I said, and one of the things that I take strongly into therapy is one of the comments that my parents used to say to me all the time, which is self-preservation is the first law of nature. You know,
true.
and so
That's true.
at the end of the day, I need everybody to take care of themselves.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? I need you to
part of
do your job. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And that's why I always tell my kids, hey, stay in your lane. Do your job. I'm in my lane. I'm the parent. I'm gonna do my job.
right.
You're the kid. You do. So
Do your
that's really
job.
part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
So
huge. That's huge.
yeah, yeah, it becomes huge, and so yeah, that really becomes the thing about the self esteem is that it plays a strong role in the growth or the ungrowth, the divorce, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because now I can't carry my weight in the relationship.
yeah,
That's the healthy person, right? The
yeah,
healthy person is going to be able to distinguish some things that are going on. Uh, Focus on what needs to be done, blah, 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 move forward. The unhealthy person is going to be, hey, it's your fault. Um, uh, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're projecting out. They're doing some things. They not feel good about themselves because they don't want anybody to look at them, right?
Mm,
It's all about the external stuff that's going
yeah.
on. You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
Those are some of the things that we really talk about and really address, especially when it comes to the component of the self-esteem and just really being able to know exactly where that lies within the relationship.
And so, what you first off, that makes a ton of sense because if someone is lacking a certain amount of self-esteem, you can't be better with someone else if you can't even be better with yourself. Getting yourself, like you said, staying in your lane, making yourself whole, making sure you're complete. That's the only way you're gonna be able to bring anything positive to the other person. And anytime I hear, a therapist, a counselor, psychologist talk about their approach to either relationships or individuals and how they lay things out and how they go through the different categories within the emotions and the mental and the spiritual and the overall wellness of the person or couple. It all reads perfect on paper. My question is, does therapy always work, or are there instances where it just don't work?
Well, and that's a good point. And the answer to that, what I would be is like this. And I'm glad you brought that up. Is that if a person is ready, right? And this is being transparent and real. Is that, and I'll find out at some point in therapy if you're ready or not. And I can go back to I'll make it more clear like this. It's like if an addict is ready to stop, it doesn't matter if I come along and say, "Hey, I got this program I'm going to take you to, where it can help you." It's like, yeah, that's fine and dandy. But if I'm not ready, right,
Mm,
it's not. That's not going to work. You see what I'm
right,
saying? A
right.
person has to be ready to change.
Mm,
They have to be at that point where they're saying to themselves, "You know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore." And
yeah,
so the answer to that is yes, it does, but the person has to be ready. They got to be on deck, right? Because me telling you to be on deck is not going to get it.
that ain't it.
That's
That
not
ain't it.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if I have somebody, and we're going back to the very beginning, that's walking through the door, then I know. I don't know if they're completely ready, but I know that they're, because they might be encouraged to be there, right?
Yeah.
Might by their spouse or maybe some other, maybe a court order or something like that. So there might be some incentive behind that. But if I got somebody walking through the door, that lets me know, okay, something's here, right? Something's here. There's something that brought this person here that's let me know that they might be ready to be on deck to
Right. The
get
fact
this
that they
thing
even walked
going.
through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
Says
where
a
you
lot.
got to start. You got to start with, is the person ready,
Yeah.
right? Because you know in your own life, if you want to do something, you're gonna do it,
True.
right? And that's
I lost my guy. Don't come back. Come back to me. Come back to me. He'll be right back. He'll be right back. We're just having technical difficulties. I get him back on. If you're enjoying the channel, you're enjoying the content, please, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, follow the channel, whatever you got to do to stay in touch. We have incredible conversations like this all the time. This is the Pod is Good podcast. And I try my best to bring you some amazing content. And hopefully that's what you're gathering now. Hopefully, Dr. Alvin is, you know, breaking down some things that maybe you wanted to know about concerning therapy, concerning relationships, whether it's personal or with you and your significant other, whatever it is. I hope you are, getting a lot out of this conversation. I think I got my guy back, just waiting for him to get his lighting right. Kind of hard to see him. Once we get that on, I'll bring the doc back so we can finish our conversation. Um, wow. What does therapy work? It sounds like as long as you're ready, therapy works. And that makes sense. I mean, because I guess that's like with anything in life. You got to be ready. If you're not ready for the job, it don't matter if they hire you, you're not going to do a good job. If you if you ain't ready to give your life to Christ and somebody convinces you to walk up there, you're going to go back to doing the same thing the next day. You have to have that personal decision inside of you long before anybody on the outside can assist you with it. It's a personal choice, and therapy is the exact same way. I got the doctor
Can you hear
back.
me?
I got the doctor back. We'll bring him in. There you go.
Okay, okay, okay.
I can hear you loud and clear. I see
Okay.
you.
All right. Good deal. Good deal.
All right.
Um, yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that we're talking about. We're just talking about that self-esteem and being able to know that, hey, the self-esteem is important. It plays a big role. And do you really love yourself? You know what I mean? Because I can't love you more than you love yourself. You know, you
Right.
have to start off with being able to know
Mm,
that you love yourself, and
that's
that's
big.
important. So that's what we're talking
Big.
about. That's huge. And so we're just going to go with that. And that's important.
I can't love you more than you love yourself.
Mm-mm.
Whoa, that sound like one of them old love songs right there.
There you go.
That
There you
sound like
go.
a
That's
song
right.
Lenny Bruce should have sung that song.
Yep.
Lenny Williams.
That's right.
That's
That's right.
woo.
Yes,
I
that's
can't love you
important.
more than you love
You know,
yourself.
and I'm glad that you really went in that direction because that's really important. And that's one of the things that, you know, I've always focused on in terms of with my kids, raising them with self-esteem, you know, because I knew that that was really one of the key components in terms of externally being
Hmm.
outside of the home. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Is that, you know, I wanted them to be confident in themselves and their ability to make good choices, make decisions, and but mostly feel good about themselves. That's important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
That's
so
huge.
for your parents, and I can say this is that, you know, building that ego with their kids, especially at a young
Mhm.
age, you know, between the ages of 3 on up to 7, 8 years old, you want to be able to stroke that ego, positive reinforcement, you know, just telling them that they're good, they're good, they're good.
Hmm.
That plays really big in terms of into the adult life. And so that's
That
important.
is that is
Self-esteem.
such a good point and brings up a great question. I didn't even realize I had this question until you said that. Is there too big of an ego for a kid? You know, we tell our kids you're amazing, you're the greatest, you can do anything, you're da 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 da, which we should. And I've noticed that some children take that differently than others. Some start to kind of have an air about them where, you know, they're a little better than other kids and they can do no wrong. And then so I start to wonder, is there a breaking point of stroking that ego where maybe you went too far?
Mhm.
Or in your opinion, will that all, you know, soothe itself out through the maturity phase and it'll all make sense later in their life?
Well, I think at some point what happens is that, you know, the real world steps in. You know what I mean? Let's be
Ah,
transparent. You know, at some point the real
ah,
world steps in, and you know, and as you know, and I know, the real world is, you know, that it's the real world. You know
it
what I
is.
mean?
But you
So,
don't. But even saying that, you don't want to set your kids up because you know the bigger they are, the harder they fall. You don't want to have them too high and they start crashing and burning.
but I think that along with the foundation, though, because you know, with the self esteem, is that, you know, you're still building those tools along the way, which is communication. You know, the ability to handle their anger, what that looks like. You know, and so these things are being displayed within the home. You know,
Hmm.
when I get upset, you know, I'm not running around the house throwing shit, tearing up shit. You know what I'm saying? And they see that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to display as much as possible because we're going back to that level of chaos in
yeah,
the home that I talked about that was down the street, right? Of course, my wife and I argue. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's normal. You know, that's going to happen. But I'm not beating her up. I'm
Right.
not doing these things that are very just going to be traumatic experiences. And so, along with building the self esteem, I'm also doing the other things that are important for them to learn and take into their toolbox along the
Yeah,
way, which is the communication, the financial piece that we talked about, because we're discussing that. We're talking about so it's really the balance of things that we're incorporating within the family structure, along with building that self-esteem that's going forward. And so yeah, it is it's tricky, but at the same time, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but we're trying to do the best that we can
of
as
course,
parents to
of
really
course.
allow our kids to to have a good positive self-esteem and feel good about themselves. Um, but yeah, the world will take place. They'll go outside the home, and so they're gonna have to take their bumps and bruises. But
Like
as long as
everybody
you have a
else.
as long as you have a good solid foundation for them to rely on,
Yeah,
as you know yourself and myself, that becomes important. You know what I mean? And
got
that's
you.
and that's really what we're talking about in terms of building that self-esteem and just really looking at that going forward. Because once you got that good solid foundation within the home, then that's going to pay off dividends
Yeah,
in the long run.
that makes sense. I don't know if it's how you're holding the phone, but you sound a little lower than you did
Okay.
before. So maybe I don't know if your hand might be slightly over the mic, but just kind of keep
Well,
your
what I
eye.
had to do is I had to put in my charger, and it's
Oh,
right at the bottom.
got you. You
So
had
I
to make
don't
some
know if that.
adjustments.
Yes, I had to make some adjustments. Is it
Okay, but
better
that sounds
now?
way better. Way,
Okay.
way
All right.
better. Perfect.
Okay. Good.
So real quick for anybody that's listening and probably, wants to know, how long have you been in the field of psychology?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go with 40 years of
Oh, yeah.
psychology.
When
Yeah.
you ask somebody about time and they call God's name, you about to hear a lot of numbers. So
Oh yeah.
40
And,
years
that,
you've
and
been
that's
in the game.
Yeah, and that's the good part about it, because at some point, like I tell everybody, is like, look, it's like when you're listening to the older people when we were younger, it's like, there's that air of wisdom that people have, about
Yeah.
certain things. And one of the things that I can say in terms of my years of doing therapy and being around individuals, couples, and groups is that I've taken in a lot of information, and I think that that's really the important part about this is that, and I documented a lot of that stuff, and so I felt that it was very valuable for me to really be able to not only take that in, but like I said, document it, and then
Yeah.
also bring that into to therapy. When I'm working with couples and individuals and in groups, and then that's where the books come from too, because at some point, if you want to take it a little bit further, let's like, hey, let's put that into material where I can help others learn and get
Right.
that valuable information as well. So that becomes
Yeah.
important. But yeah, 40 years we're talking
40
about.
years. And
Yeah,
now was this always the goal and dream of your life, or did you start at first wanting to be Dr. J, or maybe wanting to be, DJ Cool Herc? What was the first
right, right,
dream
right,
that
right.
you had?
And again, I like your questions because yeah, it was always there. Yeah, and it was about 12 years old when I
Wow.
figured out it was like, hey, you know what? I want to be able to work with the mind because it really just kind of it was really one of those inklings of like, why do people make the decisions that they do, and why do they do the things that they do? And so that was always intriguing to me. And so, yeah, it started very young. I didn't know it was going to be a psychologist, but I knew it was going to be working with people. And then it just kind of became more defined as time went on, in terms of,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's it. That is the goal. The goal is to be a doctor, and so
Wow.
it kind of defined itself as time went on, but I did know that I wanted to work with the mind. And so that was at a very young age. Yeah.
That is incredible. I'm starting to feel like if my podcasting life does not work for me, I'm going to get into psychology because what you just said is literally exactly what I said when I was younger. And I said I wanted to be a neurologist because I was
Okay.
like, I just think the brain is so interesting, like
Right, right,
how it
right.
controls so many things, how it actually is your reality. If your brain thinks it's hot, it doesn't matter what it feels like outside. You can start
Exactly.
sweating. You can actually manifest those thoughts in your brain physically because that's how powerful the brain is. And I was like,
Right,
I
right.
want to do that. But then hearing what you just said, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I love people, talking to people, love the brain. Like, okay, all right, cool. I got it. All right. Now that I know my next venture, if pot is good doesn't work, I know my
That's
next
right.
venture. I want to hear about one of your other ventures. I want to hear about your book. What's the name of your book?
Well, right now I have a book of poetry that's out. It's out on Barnes and Nobles, and I'm just trying to think of the other site. It just left my mind right now.
Don't
But
worry, just tell them the name of it, they'll find it.
yeah, poems about him, her, them, and me. There was a
Mm.
book of poetry that I wrote about 15 years ago, and I
Oh wow.
actually published it. And here's the interesting thing about it, because you bring up the book, is that I already wrote the books that I'm going to publish. And so that's the really crazy part about this, is that, but I
Nice.
just feel like they happen at a certain time. And so when I wrote the book of poetry, it was really about uh, the title, which is him, her, them, which is, him is my dad, her is my mom, them is my siblings,
Hmm.
and then me, right? And so
Wow,
that's
that's
the
nice.
book.
That's nice.
Um, and so it's also on Amazon. You can go on Amazon. Dr. Alvin James Williams. That's the author, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's really just a collection of experiences that I had growing up, um, through my childhood and then on into adulthood. And so, and I was very excited about that, because I really wanted to just publish something to kind of get me prepared to where I'm at right now, where I want to publish the things that I really did research on. And so it was really uh, out of experiment. I said, okay, let me just see what it's like,
Yeah.
see what the process is like. So I wrote the poems, and I said, let me put this into book form. And so I did that. And so, yeah, that was about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, that I published that. And now I'm getting ready to publish a book. It's a children's book. It's in our neighborhood. And I did all the illustrations and everything. And so
Oh
I'm excited
nice. Look
about
at
that.
you.
Yeah. And so
Look at
I'm gonna get,
you.
yeah, I'm gonna get that out there. And that's been sitting on deck for like 12 years. And I just,
Wow.
but now it's like I just, it's one of those things where you got to feel it. You got to
True.
be like, okay, I'm ready. I just don't want to put it out there and just be putting books out there.
Right.
I
Then
want
you
to
won't
know
have the right
that
energy behind it.
exactly. I want the
Yeah.
right energy ready. So now I just feel like it. I'm going to put it out there, and so you can look forward that to be published before Christmas comes out. And so that's a
Nice.
children's book, and it's about my neighborhood that I grew up in. We had this older lady. Her name was Mama Lou. Believe it or not, she was from the South, and she was kind of the gatekeeper of our neighborhood. She would see
Ah.
everything that was going on in the neighborhood, and so I
Ah.
captured one of the evenings that I haven't had an experience with her, and I just wrote it up, did the illustrations and everything, and it just kind of talks about her and my experience with her, and then just being a kid in the neighborhood. And so that's one of the books that I hope to publish, like I said, within the next couple of weeks.
I
Couple of
love it.
months, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, a couple of months. I love it. And you actually answered my next question, because I was gonna say, I know how art imitates life. And oftentimes when I'm writing songs, there are stories that people have told me, or the way that that person proposed, or this thing that that kid went through, that find their way into my songs. And
Right.
so when you first said the book of poetry, I'm like, is it possible that any of your clients might read a poem and go, hey, that sounds like me?
Yeah, I
Is
think
that
so.
possible?
I think so. It's really that part where I think we're all connected on some level, and there's
True.
some things that really just
Absolutely.
kind of, there's some moments that you was like, hey, deja vu or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
really, I think we all have that feeling of like we are connected on some level, and so yeah, I think that it does uh, run. I won't say, I guess, kind of rub off on them, but it really, I think they kind of see myself in them, and I see myself in them as well. But I think that part of it is what, when they come into the room, you can kind of feel connected on that level. But yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. We'll be looking forward to the next book. You never know. Maybe your next book of poems might even have this episode of the podcast somehow in there. Some little poem about it. I'm gonna look hard. I'm gonna make
Oh
sure,
yeah,
I don't
definitely.
want to miss it.
Well, for that book, I definitely want to do a part two. So I
Okay.
definitely want to be
Okay.
a part two of
Nice.
poems about him, her, and them. So I definitely want to do a part two on that as
Him,
well.
her,
So,
them, and me.
so
I
I'll,
like
I'll lock you in on that for sure.
that. All right, last thing, you told me that you were a human activist. When you first said it, I'm like, okay, I know. No, I don't know what that is. So tell me, what is a human activist
Well, I
to
think
you?
it's really just a person for me, and how I kind of put it out there is that somebody that really just kind of, uh, I am really advocating for people to live their best life,
Mm,
and that's really what I am all about, and so that's the therapist part of me. It's the part of me that really wants people to be aware of some things that are going on. It's like, I surf, and so it's like people is like, it's not too many minorities that will serve, but it's like, don't look at it that way. Look at it
yeah,
as like, hey, it's something that you can do. You know what I mean?
true.
Other than the things that you are doing to really just not allow you to really be at another level in your life. Of exposure, and just really like meditation, like yoga,
Mm,
like taking a walk on the beach, you know what I mean? But really just being aware of all the things that are available to us as human beings that are going to allow us to go to another level of
mm,
existence and be in that realm of just peace, especially inner peace.
mm,
But really, that place where you can be okay with everything that's going on, physically, spiritually, nutrition wise, all of that. So
yeah,
it's a lot of different areas, but that's what I advocate for: people being able to, like my son says, live their best life.
live their best
And so
lives. I
so
like it.
that's really what's
I like it.
important. Yeah, that's the human advocate in me,
Okay.
being able to really work with clients, get them to get to that level where they understand that, yeah, there is a better way. You know, there's a better way to do some things that I've been struggling with,
Mm,
that can get me to that better level of existence. Because you know what, if you are living in a world of chaos, that's not a place. That's not a good place to be in.
true.
It really isn't. I
True.
want to get you to that peace.
Yeah.
That existence that is really peace and calm. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's really important. So that's where that human activist comes in terms of that part right there.
Okay. All right. I love that. I love that. Absolutely love it. Well, Doc, I normally end, I guess I should say cousin Doc. I normally end with like a top five. I ask somebody their top five something: artists, comedy movies, stand up comedians, whatever.
Hmm.
With you, I want to ask something different because we didn't really go into it, but I do feel like you have to have one of these, and I'm hoping that you do, or else this question is going to completely fall flat. I want to know your most interesting or scariest surfing story.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm glad your questions are really on point, and that's what I like about this whole engagement that we've had. And I can just go to this morning because, um, and it's going to parlay into what you were asking me, is that, I was coming out of the water, and I was going over to the showers, where they have the outdoor showers, and just kind of cleaning up myself, my wetsuit and the board and everything. And I passed the lifeguard, and the spot that I go to is called, the beach is called Will Rogers. And so, there was a lifeguard out there. There's a lifeguard station, which is really cool. And he was out there, um, doing his thing that he does in the morning and stuff like that. So I walked by, and I said, hey man, how you doing? He said, oh, I'm doing good. I said, thank you for your service. And it kind
Mm,
of threw him off. He's like, okay, and I could tell he was kind of shocked, right?
yeah.
And so I went on to the shower as well. And then on the way back, he was still out there, and he kind of stopped me. He said, hey, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing good. I said, look, let me just tell you why I said thank you. And he said, oh, okay, yeah. He said, well, I've been surfing since I was 16, and I've been in the water that long, and I'm 67 right now, right? And so I've been saved twice by
Hmm.
lifeguards, right? And so that's
Mm,
why I'm saying thank you.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying thank you because, those two times that I was out there, I made a bad decision, you know, and I had to have the guy come out there and bring me in, right? And
Wow.
so if you ask me my scariest moments, that would be my scariest moments. You know, one was about, I guess it was about 20 years ago, and then the other one would happen about 6 months ago. You know, I was out surfing, and I made a bad decision. I was gonna catch this wave, but I didn't. I went behind the wave, and so just to let your listeners know, when you go behind a wave, you have to understand there's another wave coming. You know,
Mm.
and so and these waves got barely they got pretty big within a matter of moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have a decision to make. It's like, okay, do I catch this wave or do I go get behind the wave, which is, you know, behind it, right? You got to paddle behind it.
Yeah.
And so I got behind it, and then like I said, there was another one. I'm like, okay, damn. And so now I got to get behind that wave, right? And so the decision that I made to not catch that first wave led me into a dilemma where now uh, I'm tired, right? Because you're paddling and you're exhausting a lot of
A
energy,
lot of energy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, to get behind these waves. And so by the time I did the second wave and there's a third wave coming, I'm like, oh my God, I could tell I was in trouble, right? And so I'm looking, and the lifeguard he can see me, right? He's looking at me and he's trying to gauge, okay, so that I need to get out there, right? And
Yeah.
so what they do is they have this thing where they signal, you know, you either go thumbs up or you go thumbs down. And so I'm like this, you
Mm.
know, and that's letting them know, you know, hey,
Come on.
let's figure, let's get this
Bring
out,
in the
right?
troops.
Now, here's the ironic part about it was a brother, right? He's the
Oh, okay.
lifeguard, right? And so he comes out there, right? And it wasn't no huge rescue, but it was. He definitely knew I needed help, right? He
Yeah.
comes out, he said, "Okay, get on your board. I'm gonna bring you in, right?" And he said, "Okay." So and so
Wow.
it was funny, but it wasn't funny at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say that, yeah, those were two of my scariest moments that I faced, you know, in terms of surfing. And so it's really just making a good decision. That time I didn't make the good decision. And he brought me in and it was like, and he's like, "You done for the day?" I said, "Yeah, I'm done."
Yeah, yeah, I'm done.
It's like,
I'm done.
yeah, it's like,
So
that's
quick
it's,
question. When you say make a good decision, for someone who doesn't surf, how would you have known that that was the good decision? And you, because you know most of us watch like surfing on movies, that's what
right,
surfers
right,
do. They're trying to find the right one. This one, nah,
right.
I'm wait to the next one, and it seems like that always works. So how would you have known? Nah, I should just take this one because not taking it might lead to a bad situation.
Well, because I surveyed the ocean conditions, right, and I saw the
Ah,
waves, right, and
okay,
so the best decision would have been to take that first wave. You know what I mean?
got you.
Because I looked and I saw they were getting bad, right, and so I should have bailed out on that first wave and took it instead of going behind it. You
Yeah,
know, and so I
yeah.
went
No,
behind it, and it was
I
like,
get that.
and at that point, it was like, okay, that
Yeah.
wasn't a good decision. You know what I
And so
mean?
when you go behind, is that when we see you guys going under the roll, or is that, or do you
Well,
actually
okay,
go over?
so the wave is coming up and
Right,
going over, right, and
right.
crashing, right, and so I got behind that one. I didn't go under it because that would be a duck dive, right? And so I could have done that, but I was at that point where I knew I could get past it by going over it, right? Because it
Gotcha.
hadn't broke yet,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
means
yeah,
that you know, it breaks and it goes over, right?
yeah.
And so I went over it before it broke. And so I was able to do that. But like I said, here comes another one. And so
Right.
now I got to paddle to get to that one before it breaks also, because I wasn't at a position to actually catch it. And so
Yeah,
now it's like so it just got progressively worse,
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
So the decision to not ride in on that first one cost me. And
yeah,
so, yeah. And I knew it at that point. It was like, damn, I should have taken that first wave, because now I'm struggling and I'm getting tired because now I'm exhausting all this energy, you know,
mm,
because you got to remember you got a board, because there's a difference, right? Because now you got a board that you're responsible. Now I could have taken the leash off and let the board go in, but now that board could hit somebody, or you know what I mean, do
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
you're responsible in that sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about in terms of that aspect of it. So I
Ooh,
knew that decision.
it's gonna cost
Uh,
you.
yeah, and one of the things that you'll learn, and you know, when we talk, when we meet and we talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
this, but the ocean changes every day, every time you go out there,
Mm.
right? There are some similarities, right? Like you know, there's some similarities. Like it's rough. Like last weekend it was rough. This weekend it was calm. So there's some similarities. But every time you go out there, the ocean is different. And
Hmm.
so that's really just the nature of the beast. And so it's really just kind of understanding that when you go out there, you got to respect it, you know. And so that's number one.
That makes sense.
It's a damn ocean, shit. It ain't no swimming pool. You know what I mean? So you got to respect that. I've
You
seen
got
that
to.
ocean. Hey, cuz I've seen that ocean throw 400-pound women around, you know, like they were a bag of chips or something. You know what I mean? So you go out there, you got to give it
Give it
respect.
respect.
Yeah,
And there's a metaphor in that story you just said. You know, everybody, if you were listening, take that first wave. Don't procrastinate in life. You're going to waste more energy later on. Sometimes that first wave of motivation or inspiration or desire, like, go with it.
go
If you
with
had
it.
this motivation to go back to school, to start this business, you never know. Letting that first wave of energy pass by, you might spend so much more energy trying to figure it
Catch
out
up.
later on
Yeah,
because you didn't take that first one. So I heard the bar, I caught the message, I appreciate it. Cousin Doc, it's been a great episode, my guy. I appreciate you. Now we talked about it. You know how we send you off. Pod is good,
all the time.
and all the
Every time.
time,
Pot is good.
pod is good. Thank you. Please promise me that when the next book drops, you will come here and we can talk about it because I want to hear about Mama Lou.
I
I
will.
want to.
Matter of fact, what I'll do for you, cuz I'll have both books for you, and that way we can do it like that.
I
And
love it.
so I'll
I love
definitely let you know. We'll go over both books, and I'll read a couple of the poems and all of that. And so
it.
yeah, I
I love it.
appreciate that. We'll knock that out.
Absolutely. All right, cuz I appreciate you. I'll catch you next time. Till then, be safe. Blessings to the family. Thank
Tell
you
your mom
again.
I said hi.
All
Much
right, I
love,
will.
cuz.
I'll
Much
talk to you
love.
soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is episode 37 of the Pod is Good podcast, the notorious PIG. Did we disappoint? Did we disappoint or did you enjoy every moment of it? For myself, definitely one of my favorite episodes. Got a chance to learn a lot. I love sitting here and talking to some other intellectual, some other dreamer, some other person that's been through and knows things that I don't, and allowing my mind to open up. And I hope you enjoy that same kind of experience. That's really what we try to bring you here. If you did enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel, follow the movement, turn on notification bells, share the podcast, whatever, all of it. You can also find this podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music. We out here. You know what I'm saying? We out here. It is your new best friend, Cashmere, California. And until next time, go do something nice for somebody you don't know. I'll catch y'all next time.